Welcome to the new UK Makers podcast. I'm James.
I'm Rosie.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight, this is the launch. This is the first step to a new journey. So we'll do our introductions, we'll talk what we're going to be focusing on, and we'll do kind of first start-off introductions. So Matt, the maker himself, take it away. Introduce your channel. Where are you from? What do you do?
So I haven't got a channel on YouTube yet. I was going to start one up, but my Instagram is Hex Manufacturing or HexMFG _MPH. I'm just a small-time machinist in my garage, making at the moment small, intricate measuring pieces of equipment just for fun. So that's what I'm about.
I've seen your stuff. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you very much.
We have Rosie, which is, a rose of many petals, as I'll say.
Jack of all trades.
Indeed. So, Rosie, where are you from? Obviously.
Scotland. I'm just a college student studying manufacturing. I also have a mechanical engineering qualification. I also work at Asda, but nobody cares. I have a shed. I want to get into machining, and I make stuff and restore stuff. And you'll find me. Sorry?
You do have a kick-ass restoration channel as well, don't you?
Yeah, I was just about to get there. Hang on. I have a YouTube channel, Rosie's Restorations, Rosie's.Restorations on YouTube and Instagram. You can find me there.
Links to those in the description. So we are a trio of a little bit of everything. I would say that we've got Matt, who is the brains out of the three of us, is what I'd probably say. We've got the whole technical thinking type chat with the, his Instagram is very kind of straightforward, nicely cut. We've got Rosie, who kind of dabbles in a little bit of everything, anything that's mechanically and interesting. Some of the stuff on Rosie's channel is pretty amazing, restoration-wise. A lot of variety, a lot of good things to look at, a lot of good things to discuss.
And then, what about you, pal? Where are you from? What do you do?
So I am Anchor Designs. I have been for the last 3 years now. I was a different channel prior to that, but I've kind of just become Anchor Designs. A little bit of a messy, weird journey. But I dabble with a little bit of everything, semi-creative, semi-messy, and sometimes semi-disaster. Kind of works out all well, though. But it's great that, to be honest, we don't know each other in person. We've all kind of met through Instagram, as many of us do. And we've kind of got a collective interest on all things makery. So we've built this podcast to kind of share our weeks, our knowledge, our everything really, to try and carry on that trend of bringing the people of the UK that make things, bring together. And we're going to be discussing anything from engineering to woodworking to wood turning to tool collecting to other people. So there's going to be a lineup of guest stars, and we're just going to have a chat. I mean, we're trying to be as professional as we can, but it's all going downhill from this point, really. So I think the beauty of us as well is that we're all from different parts of the country, of the UK. So we've got myself, who is in the South Yorkshire area. We've got Matt, you go on, Matt, because you're in a fancy place.
Southwest on the sort of the other side of Bristol.
Combine harvester.
Home of the Wurzels. They're not far from where I live, where they came from. So yeah, all around that way.
Tomatoes and potatoes.
And Rosie, are you Welsh? Are you?
No,
Rosie has left
Irish.
the chat.
No, Scottish, obviously, but I was born in York.
Was you?
Yeah.
The plot thickens.
Oh, you're a dirty southerner.
Yeah, I was born in York District Hospital.
That's nice. That is nice.
You can totally tell from my accent.
Yeah, you do sound very York. You know, you've got like a flat cat. You have got. It's not a whippet or a greyhound, but that's kind of, you've got a little bit of Yorkshire in you then.
I'll take
A
that.
little bit.
Well, she has got how many greyhounds?
3. 3 dogs.
3 greyhounds, as you do. So you are, you know, apart from the flat cap, which I don't think you own one, you...
It's all right, I got a spare. I'll send it in the post.
It's been a busy week, and I think to kind of kick off this episode, as well as anybody who's listening, check out everybody's Instagram and get kind of a feel of each of what we do. But tools, we all have a common love, interest, and financial disruption of tools. So,
And we're all tools, so...
Yeah. So this week, Rosie has bought, am I right in saying, your first personal metal lathe?
Well, I bought the Drummond lathe to be my personal one.
Yeah.
But it's kind of in like 600 pieces, and I can't find the energy or inspiration to put it back together. So, but my first proper lathe, I'll say, proper lathe that I'm going to properly use and make shit.
That's good. I've got to ask, because I've owned a Drummond round bed. I've owned, you know, kind of that similar era. And there's not many people, if you don't mind me saying, in the nicest possible way, most people our kind of similar age-ish goes out and they go to places like Machine Mart or Screwfix or Axminster, and they look at an older lathe, and they think, no, that's rubbish. It's, you know, it's got a little bit of rust on there. There's a bit of patina. You know, what made you kind of go for, you know, let's face it, quite an old lathe now? What made you go for that?
I just like old shit. I don't know. It's maybe because, like, you know, before we had all these like lathes with all the bells and whistles and stuff like that, people who used these lathes to make stuff way back, and it was just as precise. Might not have like the auto feed or the gearbox or whatever, but they still managed it. So if they can do it, I can do it.
It's pretty incredible. Matt, what about you? You've got obviously a lot of machine tools. Where did you start? What was your first lathe?
My first personal lathe is the one I've got now. I used to work in a tool room, like for my apprenticeship. I was basically worked like old school tool room sort of apprenticeship. I was quite lucky in my apprenticeship, really, to have a guy called Mike Richards who trained me up. With milling, and a guy called Paul Washbrook who trained me up on the lathes, and they were both old school machinists. Yes. And so you get really dull. I have to admit, I am one of the people that you were talking about earlier when it comes to buying machines. I wanted one that was ex-industry, of, you know, something from maybe the 70s onwards was probably about as late back as I would go. I know you guys look at like 1870s, but I was more about like Colchesters, and obviously Harrison lathes that I've got now. That was sort of what I was aiming for, because that was what I was used to using. When I've then seen what you guys have got, the definite sort of 1920s, 1930s sort of era, maybe a bit before. I have to take my hat off to you, because to me, I look at them and I go, I'd have to remachine that bit, and I'd have to redo that bit. And no doubt that you could probably just go, that'll be fine, and you can turn perfectly good parts on it. But I become a bit of I go too deep into it, I think, especially when it comes to like the measurement side of things. But
I don't see the problem. Like, I've used like a Colchester lathe, and I think even when I use that, like, obviously you're supposed to use like the dials and stuff like that on the cross slides and stuff. I don't bother. Like my lecturers, like, you should probably learn how to do that. And, like, I know how to do it, but like if I'm using the lathe in my shed, I don't have that. So you just keep going. And I mean, my parts are all in tolerance when I do it. So mind you, like it's college, innit? The tolerances aren't like microns. It's like 2.5 mil, innit? So,
yeah. No, I mean, the thing is, I got into this conversation with my dad once because he ended up looking or following some chap on YouTube who makes watches on an old-fashioned, essentially just a really small wood turning lathe. I mean, that's really what he's using. He hasn't got any dials or anything like that. It's all done through feel, and the work he produces is exquisite. And then there's me, who's using this hoofing great big piece of metal to make other bits of metal smaller, essentially more accurately. But in truth, as you say, if you develop the feel for it, no doubt you could probably make just as accurate parts using like the tools that one you've got, or if you wanted, stick a little I don't know what they call it for a wood lathe. Is it like a rest, a stand?
Yeah, tool rests. Yeah, on the banjo. Yeah.
And then just feed in using a miniaturized version of a turning chisel. I have to admit, I've never been anywhere near a wood lathe.
Like a gouge,
Yeah.
sort of. Is that what you mean, like a gouging tool?
Yeah, I don't know what they call all of their kit.
Yeah, there's multiple things, but in essence, I mean, I've gone. So out of this group, I probably do the most woodworking out of everybody, if that's fair to say. So I'm kind of, which is a bit odd, to be honest, because at one point I started my engineering job in aerospace. So I worked for a well-known aerospace manufacturer in the Midlands, and I kind of did my apprenticeship on tool making and sheet metal, and we kind of did a little bit of tool making to make other parts for the assembly lines. We're effectively doing all our jobs for Airbus and Rolls. We're kind of like a satellite factory of Rolls-Royce, mainly making, I can never say this, wing ribs for Airbus A320s, 2180s, and some other weird, like Westland helicopters, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I went from a production environment to then going into quite a very fast-paced subcontractors. So I finished my apprenticeship, and long story short, I kind of moved out of that slow pace aerospace, very finicky NDT, crack testing, dog bone testing, and going from having like really nice modern, Mazak kind of 5-axis CNC machines to having like all high spec, nice modern tool room level equipment. Like as Matt said, there's Colchester. We had a few Harrison L7s, some 2000s, and they were amazing to use, like unbelievably beautiful to kind of use, and you're kind of comfortable with them, and you no longer look at the controls on the lathe, and you're spinning everything round, and you're putting in the your auto feeds, and it's just lovely. And then after I left that environment and focused more in sheet metal and fabrication, I really missed it. So I bought my first, it was a Myford ML7, whilst I was still working in aerospace, and it was my 17th birthday present, was my first ML7. And I also bought a Chinese L20 mill, and I went from, at the time, being 17 and thinking I knew everything, I assumed that my Myford ML7 that I've just bought would do exactly the same as my Colchester 2000s that I was using at work. So I was like nicking, I shouldn't say this, but the company's no longer around, probably because I nicked some tooling. But I was kind of 5-finger pinching the tooling that I had for my 2000 at work for my Myford ML7, and some of the tooling that I was actually stealing was larger than the tool post. So I was like, it just didn't kind of match up to me. I'm like, oh, yeah, that doesn't quite work. So then you kind of have to become really used to going from a production environment to then having a Myford ML7, which is the best in class, but its own class. It's completely different. So I completely get where you're coming from, Matt. And it's still, to this day, takes me a lot of time to keep telling myself, this is just a hobby lathe. This is not,
You can't take a 2-3 mil cut and run it at 40,000 RPM.
No,
With,
max.
through spindle coolant and all the good stuffs.
Yeah. And for 3 years now, for 3 years I've been wood turning. So I kind of scoffed at the idea at one point when I was in engineering and woodworking. It's like wood butchering, and it doesn't really appeal to me until you kind of get to a point where you've done engineering for, it's 10 years for me now. And you kind of get a bit bored in a way. There's only so many things and pretty things that you can kind of make. And, at the time I was getting firewood, as lots of people were. So it's kind of like free stuff to play with. So I built my own wood lathe and thought, oh, okay, I've built it. It was more the challenge of me machining and making my own wood lathe. And then I realized, oh, actually, this is quite a lot of fun. So that's the turning side of my lathe addiction. And I think between us, how many lathes have we all got now? I mean, we're pretty nuts, both metal and wood turning. I think I'm probably the worst one out of everybody.
Well, I mean, I remember Rosie made a T-shirt for herself with Queen of the Mini lathes on it, because I think at one point you have like 5, 4, 5?
4. Yeah, 4. I did have 5, but it was like a mini like jeweler's lathe. Like it was literally like this big, so like 6 inches long. So it was like really small.
6 inches is small. Oh, for a lathe, yeah.
Yeah, for a lathe, yeah.
For a lathe, right? Okay. I just
ridiculous. You're talking to the wrong lassie here. Exciting.
But no, it's I totally get you, Matt. I can relate to that for sure, and it's very odd. But I'd say I probably do now. I don't know, 50% of the time is wood turning, and then 50% is metal turning. Maybe even less so now. But I mean, Rosie, what do you use your machines for? Because for people that aren't in our kind of weird circle of makery type,
it's like a
people,
cult.
They don't really get it.
It's like a cult, eh? Like we're all like friends with each other. Like everyone just follows each other, and everyone sort of knows each other, sort of thing. Yeah, well, technically I haven't used them yet, but I would use it to make cool shit. Parts, maybe. I don't know. I haven't really thought it completely through. I know I want to make pens and stuff like that. Well,
can I be honest, Rosie? I'm really glad you kind of went, I don't really know, kind of, because that's the one question that I get asked all the time. So what do you make?
Like I've got a lathe. I can make whatever the fuck I want because I've got a lathe.
Exactly. People, they always ask why. Why do you have a lathe? Or why do you do woodworking? Or why do you buy old machinery? And I can't answer. I don't know what you guys are like. I genuinely can't answer it. But until the same people come and say, can you make me this part? Or, my washing machine's broken and it's this little bit of plastic thing. Can you just, that statement there. Can you just make one of these?
Can you just fuck off?
No. And the beauty of that, I think, what I find is, I can just make that, because I've invested in that tool. Exactly, yeah. So I find a lot of people who aren't in like I'm not going to call it a club. It's not a club. There's no, I think anybody can just pick something and make it into something else. And I think the whole term of a maker is a completely different subject. But until you have that kind of inclination, you need and you want to do that, people don't get it. And I can't explain that. I haven't got the words.
Don't make stuff, just don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, see in my college class, I probably shouldn't say this because some of them follow me. But they're 16 years old and they picked up a tool and they're like, what's this? How do you use that sort of thing? And it's mental. It's like, see, because I moved out really early in my life, I had to like learn DIY myself,
Exactly.
sort of thing.
Exactly. And there's a lot of people out there, and this again is not slagging off anybody, but there's always that kind of mentality that people seem to have, is that, oh, I can get him to make it, or there'll be someone out there that can make it. And what I find is a lot of the older machines, and Rosie, you'll have this yourself, I'm sure, is that if you buy older machines, you kind of need machines to fix those machines that you've already bought. So it's kind of a non-stop spiral of even things like, I need to learn a little bit of leather working. I need to learn a little bit of welding to fix something. I need to, do a little bit of wood turning to make a handle for something. And it's all like these little skills that we've all kind of got within us, but we don't need them until we need them,
Mm-hmm.
So that's typically what I find. But it's a good topic. If anybody else out there can kind of relate and share your stories, then leave a comment or message us on our Instagram page, which is going to be. Have we got a page yet? I don't even know if we've got a page yet.
I thought you were doing that.
Yeah, it's probably one of my jobs. UK Makers Podcast. You will find us on there with regular posts and updates. So be sure to follow, subscribe, and like to get this spaceship off the ground.
I think what you're saying is true regarding like a skill set. I mean, half the battle I think is just having the confidence to go out and do it. I mean, looking back, when I started getting into making stuff, it was all through what I did at work. So I went being a toolmaker, you end up making things, and people would break toolings. Like I remember one of the first things I made for a colleague was they broke their cheap, like the cheap Chinesium die holders that you can get.
Oh yeah,
and you buy them in a set and attach
evil things.
Yeah, they're literally the only thing that you buy to get you out of a jam. But really and truly, you should spend at least, like if you want a decent tap or a decent die, you're looking at, even for the smaller sizes, you're looking at like 12 to 15, maybe even £20 for a decent tap, and it will last you a very long time.
Oh,
yeah.
Or I better return my Aldi set then.
Well, I've got one of these cheap sets because they get you out of a jam maybe once, and then after that, the tap or the die that you've used is knackered, and you probably can't use it again. But the first thing that I remember making for a colleague, I mean, we'd be making fixtures. Usually I was making like these aluminium blocks with pins in. Because I used to do, by the sounds of it, James, I used to do similar stuff to what you used to do, aircraft bits and bobs and ribs and spars and all that sort of thing. But we used to do all the smaller stuff as well, like tie rod brackets was one of the first jobs I ever did. I think of the little yellow things. If you're ever on a plane and you look out the window, you'll see these little yellow things sticking up on the wing. I used to make those. They were a common job that we had to do. And
Is this before or after the butt plugs?
Oh, this is before the butt plugs. Yeah, that was. Yeah.
I don't know this story. So
you don't know this story?
I don't know the butt plug story.
So
I mean, Matt, I've heard some things within the community, but it probably needs clarifying for the listeners.
Basically, when I left, because I ended up getting made redundant from where I did my apprenticeship because. Weirdly, the economic downturn happened, but because of the contracts that we had with aerospace, we were doing overtime whilst other people were getting laid off. It was a really weird situation to be in. But then as soon as, I think it was like for a 2-year period, everyone else was obviously going through the doldrums, and where I was working was doing really well. And then literally, I think it was 2 weeks before the end of the official end date of my apprenticeship. I got called in the office and they said basically we're not going to be able to afford to keep you on because where we've had this lull for 2 years, we haven't had any other work coming in, so we can't plan for 2 years ahead. So we can't afford to pay you a skilled man salary. So we're going to have to let you go. Oh. And it was a bit of a shock to the system. And I got in touch with basically Beamer, who ran my apprenticeship as sort of like they did my MVQ side of my apprenticeship. Training provider, I think they were deemed as. And they found me another job working for a company in Bristol. And this company was, well, I mentioned them before on my Instagram, but they were a really difficult and bad company to work for. But the boss there would do any job, and he would try and undercut everyone, but still make a profit, even if it was marginal,
Wow.
And we ended up doing some ridiculous jobs there. And one of the ones that came through, which was one of the more funnier ones, was we ended up making, it was the forms for butt plugs. So you'd have almost like a cope and a drag system, so the injection molding forms for butt plugs. And it was one of my jobs for a little while, was machining those.
So there are people out there with Matt's formed butt plugs that you have no idea the joy you have spread throughout the UK, Matt.
Yeah,
and people's bottoms.
Yeah,
I'd be proud of that. And to be honest, people go on about we don't make anything anymore, but you know what? We make butt plugs.
With pride.
We don't make the best things anymore. The top cars. We don't do that. There's no car industry, but there's an industry there of butt plugs. And you save that, Matt.
I couldn't think of a better first proper job in industry to have than make butt plugs. Number one job.
It was one of those companies where they would, as I say, the boss would undercut anybody and everybody. We ended up making the weights for gym equipment. That was one that I used to have to do on a regular basis. Chicken corers we used to make. We used to do the brackets that hold up the barriers on the motorway. The main sort of mainstay that they did was stuff for the oil industry, crude oil industry. So it was all like Inconel billets, and Inconel I think is used for armor-piercing bullets and
everything
and stuff. Yeah, it's really freaking hard. And it was just like one billet of this, the size of it would cost £1,000, and the boss would only order in however many billets we needed for the order. He wouldn't order any extra. So, and just to demonstrate how horrendous this company was, I worked there for 6 months. Me personally, I got very poorly working there through genuine stress. There were only ever 13 to 15 people on the shop floor at any one time. And I worked with about between 30 and 40 blokes, maybe even more. It was just a revolving door. People would come in on the Monday, get told, well, this is the job, and if you scrap it, pack your things and go, and they would.
I've worked at places like that. You just call everybody where I'm from A-up or mate or oi, because there's no point learning people's names.
No.
And especially in aerospace, there's just everybody's a subcontractor, and you go in there and you don't know if they're coming in next week, and they don't. That's what we've kind of found. But now I totally relate to that now. So after 6 months, you left there and you went to another place that I'm assuming. Did you stay there long? Are you happy? Or
I've been there ever since. That was Renishaw PLC.
Very nice.
So that's why I get all into the whole sort of minutiae of measurement.
Meteorology.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing for the largest part of my career. Really, is getting into all of that sort of stuff.
Where's Renishaw? And this isn't a podcast about Renishaw. I'm really sorry, but what's the origin of Renishaw? Are they a UK?
The company was founded by two gentlemen, Dave Mack, Sir Dave McMurtry, and John Deere. And basically, they came up, not the John Deere of tractors.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, wow.
It's a conspiracy. No, so they came, basically, it was to do with the Olympus engine for the Concorde, and they wanted to measure the twist in the fan blades on the Concorde. And they came up with a method of measuring it using computers, essentially. And it was basically like a probe, red ball on the end, and
everybody smashed.
Huh?
That everybody smashed one. If you haven't smashed one, You're not a machinist.
Yeah, I've broken my fair share. I mean, in my time for working for Renishaw, I've done various different roles. I started off in their machine shop. I was on the small turning division, so we used to make, even if you ever take like connectors apart on any of their kit, if you look at the end and you see these little brass connectors with only a 0.7 millimeter diameter on the outside, and with I think they were a mil diameter, but with a 0.7 mil hole in the back.
Right.
We used to machine those by the thousands. It was like high accuracy components. But then we also used to make the styli, the metal ones, not the ceramic ones that everybody smashed, but the metal ones. I used to make those, and then I moved from there onto big milling, so all the bodies and stuff like that for the probes. And then I got out of the machine shop by luck more than judgment, and I became an applications engineer. So I ended up traveling the world installing these probes in customers' machines, because it was for MTP. So you can actually get a probe that will sit inside your milling machine, so you can then machine something, call in the probe and inspect it, and then carry on. So.
I mean, just for our listeners, because we're going to have, I'm sure, like a wide range of all listeners. What's the kind of the accuracy? So if we're looking at, grab your tape measure out here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the little millimeter scale.
Mm-hmm.
What's the tolerance that you're kind of aiming for and working with within your industry?
Well, it changes from product to product for what you're after, but
it won't be on a tape measure anyway.
Exactly, that's the point I'm making. It's like half a one of them.
Yeah, so we're getting down to stuff of points of microns, so sub-micron accuracy for some of the stuff that we're measuring.
I always get this wrong. So it's 0.0 of a 1 millimeter. Take it away, Matt. 0.
So you've got 1 millimeter, so 1 point something, so that's 1 mil. Then you've got 100 microns, which is 0.1. You've got 10 microns, which is 0.01. And then you've got 1 micron, which is 0.001. And then anything obviously after that is sub-micron. So,
and if you're American, then learn the metric system like everybody else does.
So I think for our colonial cousins,
0.4 thou of 0.
I think 0.1, so 100 microns is 4 thou.
It's 4 thou, yeah. So it's 0. It's what is it? 100th of a thou.
1 thou is 25.4 microns.
Yeah,
I think that's right. Now you get it.
0.025.
0.0254, is a thou. So 1 thou is 0.0254. Yeah.
See, the tolerance on my wood lathe is about an inch. That's what I worked at. Plus or minus an inch, beer 8. And then if it's in metalworking and it's steel, if it's undersized, we'll just, blast the MIG welder out and, blast some pigeon all over it and then grind it with an angle grinder. Oh, God, I even think I'm going to vomit myself. But yeah,
I was talking to Rosie the other day. I'm making a little project that I'm working on at the moment, and I've trammed my milling as close to perfect as I can get it. And a component that I made, I then sort of put a square up to it, and I was looking at it, and I was like, I can see light through that. That's not right. And I took some measurements. I'm 20 microns out over maybe 70 mil. Should we go for?
Yeah.
So it's a 20 micron run. It was doing my boxing because I couldn't find where it was. And I mean, as Rosie said earlier, with like college stuff that you're like people in training, it's plus or minus 250 microns, and I'm literally pulling my hair out over 20 microns. Now, the job I'm working on, in theory, it shouldn't matter, but it's just because it's not.
It matters to you.
It really does. And if my mate's Matt P. Miles, who lives just around the corner from me, he takes the mick out of me something rotten for the fact that I'm obsessive about trying to get something absolutely spot on.
It is,
and I'm really happy for what it is.
Yeah. See, I totally agree with that. I do, because you can become obsessive. I mean, I remember, like, I know it sounds silly, But I remember the first time I kind of picked up a micrometer, a manual micrometer, I'd like to add. And you pick it up and then you kind of like, what are all these lines? These lines are stupid. And then one day it just kind of clicked and it was like, wow. And then you go round. What I did is I picked up like pieces of paper, my own hair, and it becomes, like a fascination. And then you just go through absolutely everything. And at the time, I was doing a lot of shooting, and as you do, like full bore rifle and pistol shooting at the time. And I remember just picking up bullets and then understanding like, oh, 0.22 is 0.22 of an inch. And then you kind of go through 9 millimeters, obviously a metric measurement. I know we're going completely off track here, but the whole beauty of, I don't know, it's kind of like an art thing, is just measuring things and understanding why it's that measurement. And I think that one thing, I don't know if you found in your industry that really kind of threw me off is in aerospace, a lot of it is imperial.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of odd. And for years, it kind of, not years, but for a long time, it kind of messes you up.
So I've still got, I wouldn't say PTSD, but my God, imperial threads, especially in the aerospace industry. I mean, I mentioned it again on one of my on the live that I did on my Instagram. They have a thread, a 1032 thread, and most people will go, surely, well, that's 5/16. Oh, no. For some reason, it's specific. It's 1032, and I don't know if it's because it's a finer thread than what I'm guessing it would be from a 5/16. Yeah. And
Rosie is taking a short intermission because her dogs need a piss. We'll be right with you.
It's because at some point, like, she'll just get up and start like barking, and I wanted to do it before she started making a noise.
Rosie needs the piss, really.
Yeah.
No, I would just piss myself, honestly.
The devotion.
Where's the tenor pads?
Yeah, tenor pads. Oh my God, Grandma. So no, me and Matt will carry on. You go.
I'll be like 2 minutes. So.
No, that'll be fine. We're still here, folks. We're still here.
My artwork.
Ruin your artwork. Oh, look at that. That's a lot of masking tape.
Yeah, there's a lot of masking tape, but you can definitely see the sort of whole Scottish thing, the whole angular lines going on there.
Yeah, I thought she was Welsh. We're going to get taken down already. It's the first episode in of the new UK Makers podcast, and it is also the final episode that we will be airing. But no.
So, tell me, what projects have you got on at the moment then?
Well, I'm gonna start by saying which ones I've just completed, because I've been really good recently. I have bought another wood lathe. So I bought an American, actually, Walker Turner wood lathe, and that is from kind of circa end of the First World War, is what I can kind of take out. It was not a lot of money, but it's ended up costing me more money than buying a brand new lathe from Axminster. So in my mind, it's worked out really well, because if that happens, you've spent the right amount of money on it and you've done all the bearings, and it's more money than, kind of a commercially available machine, then it means it's done to a pretty good standard in kind of an awkward, awful, weird, financially crippling way. So that's done. I'm enjoying it greatly. I've still got a little bit of work to do on that. I've got some weird, bonkers kind of engine hoist contraption that's putting it into the loft space of my unit. And this morning, that we mentioned earlier, both myself and Rosie have both bought our own machine. So Rosie's bought her new lathe that she's collecting tomorrow, which is a Myford ML4. And I have purchased, which is also my first time ever currying anything, from Bristol. So it's from Yate, which I know pretty well. I have bought a George. Hold on, I can never remember what it's called now. Oh God, a George Taylor milling machine, which is old. Like it's probably going to be my oldest machine now. I'm looking through the files of everything, and the last final ones was the late 30s. So I'm assuming World War II had something to do with it. So there was a Mark I that was flat belt driven, so really old, that was off like a line shaft. The deluxe model wasn't off a line shaft. It came with its own optional motor, electric motor. So, yeah, I've bought this milling machine. I've no idea really, apart from 4 photos, what it's like. I know it's rough. I know it was very cheap to buy. I paid the guy more money for it because, to be honest, I felt a little bit guilty. So I very politely said, I'm going to pay you more money and I'm going to get a courier. Can you please make a really nice pallet and bolt it down? I've never done this before. I've never bought a machine without going to look at it, to be honest. But it's one of these situations where it was that cheap. I kind of know the guy on Instagram. I really like what he does. Again, you kind of look at people's pages and you think, he's going to be a good guy, I hope.
He is a good guy. The guy you're buying it off helped me out of I needed to get a job done, and I needed a particular size tap, and I couldn't find one anywhere that could get it to me ASAP. I dropped him a line until I got 2. Swing by, they're yours, and he is a good chap.
He's a good chappy. I've done like 3 designs for him.
Oh, were they yours?
Yes.
I think it was a power hammer, wasn't it? I saw.
Yeah. Power hammer. I think he called, was it Cranky the Crane? I done.
It's Cranky the Crane. They got. Is it? I can't remember what he called the power hammer. Was it like?
Pepper? It's not
just
Pepper.
That's mine. Yeah.
So the guy we're actually talking about is a guy called Jake Hinder, and he runs 2 pages from what I know, and one is Reclaimed Railway, and clue is in the name. He's doing all things kind of reclamation and selling products that are railway related. That was really hard to say. So if you're a bit of fan of like your Fred Dibners and your old Iron steam engine and kind of the Brunel era, is that the right thing to say? Brunel-esque is what I'll say. Very appropriate for the area. Really interesting stuff and really nice guy. And he also runs the Vintage Iron UK, which is just kind of a conglomerate of all things engineering, blacksmithing, steam, anything that, you talk to a bloke at a pub and you just nod. You don't really know what it does, but you just, that gives me kind of a mental hard-on right there. I just like the look of it. I don't know what it does, but I like it. So go check him out. Jake from Vintage Iron UK, and he's based in Bristol. He's based down that way, down in Bristol. Is that right? So you're what, 20 minutes from him? Did you say, Matt?
Oh well, he's 20 minutes from my work, but I don't know because where Gloucestershire and Bristol are. There's this. He's in the bit in the middle that seems to switch sides whenever they want. It depends where they feel like saying they're from. But,
I know what you mean. I don't know how you guys find this, but we all have mixed passions, and they're all kind of similar, and what we do kind of overlaps. But when you kind of see someone's page, and it's not him posing next to it. He hasn't got sponsors over everything. He hasn't got, I'm working with, I don't know, Raid Shadow Legend, and I'm a blacksmith. I'm not aiming at anyone in particular. But as just a general kind of makey bloke, you look at it and think, I don't know what he's doing, but I want to know more. Like, I'd love to, I don't know him. I've bought a machine off him, but I kind of wish I'd gone down there just to have the experience to, just pick his brains a little bit,
Well, the thing is, I'm trying to think what I bought off him. Oh, he's the chap I bought my granite surface plate off of.
Yeah.
And he had 3 on offer, and I wanted to pick which one I wanted. And I basically like I did when we all started talking, like, what's your story? What got you into it? What got you into engineering or manufacturing or whatever? Because it's the story behind it that makes it interesting. And for him, and it was funny that because of his proximity to where I work and there being an engineering company, there's quite a few guys at work that are heavily into their steam powered everything, traction engines.
It's a good area for that.
Boats. Yeah, there's a lot of support for it. I mean, we've got a show down here at the North Somerset Showground where they do it every year, well, pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID as well, as and when this thing buggers off. But they all know each other. It's like a little community, much like how we've described all the makers on Instagram. And literally, it went from being, oh, this is just a normal transaction to, someone's turned up to pick up something and leave. It turned from that to, well, come and have a look. I'll show you all my machines, being as you're interested. He's got some incredible machinery down there, like some really interesting stuff. And I was only scratching the surface. But then, when you pull up the driveway, you see it's Patty. He's nicknamed the Power Hammer, Patty the Power Hammer. And this thing's literally 15, 20 foot high. It's huge. And apparently he bought it from Avonmouth, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it used to work making bits for the ship. I'm guessing the shipbuilding industry and all the train making industry from down Avonmouth Way. So, like in repair shops for big ass boats. So,
pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, we've reached the 47-minute mark. I don't want to kind of. I don't know. We could talk all night. I think that's what we're worried about. But I know Matt has got a family. Rosie has got a family of fur babies, and I have got washing to do. To be honest, this has been really good. A good kind of kick-off episode. And Rosie, is there anything that you kind of want to add on to this, or are you happy to start winding things up? Or
I just want to add that I'm really, really excited for picking up my lathe tomorrow.
Let's go through it.
ML4.
Tell us what it is very quickly.
Myford ML4 lathe.
Very nice. What year?
Do you know? Yeah, I was going to ask.
Don't know.
Before any of us were born, I think.
I'll find out tomorrow. So much so, obviously, the ML4 is kind of outshadowed by the ML7 and the Super 7 and the ML10. Even the ML8, I think the wood lathe, to be honest, because I can't find anything, no parts or anything for it. So I guess it'll just have to be, if anything breaks, it'll just have to be a hybrid.
Well,
if anything breaks, just send us the bits and I'll try and figure out how to make it and just send it back.
Well, that's funny you should say that, because I was speaking to my mum today. She was like, oh, what are you going to do if it has backlash or anything like that? I said, well, there's 1,200 followers that I'm sure, would help me out, and especially my good favourite machinist, Matt, would help me out if I needed anything.
Definitely.
So, because that's what she was worried about. I travel 3 hours away to crossing the border to that country, Englandshire, to pick up a lathe. But I mean, I think even if it was had a bit of backlash or anything, it's not like I'm doing anything that precise that, it's. I know.
Rosie, can I say?
What?
Speaking from mild experience of buying many, many lathes now, it will have backlash.
Yeah.
It will have chips. It will have every old
lathe. No, that's the thing though. like
It's got
I know,
lots.
like going into buying these lathes, they're not going to be fucking perfect. They're not going to be, out the shop sort of thing. Even though, like, see, like these days when you buy like a brand spanking new lathe straight from the factory, it's going to be shit anyway. So it's like made of Chinesium and shit. So you're better buying something from the 70s, I suppose. Like the lace I use at college, they're brand new Colchester student lace, and I would much prefer to get like rust on my fingers using one that's like 30 years old, if I'm honest, because they're a bit
Totally.
shit. In all honesty, I hope none of my lecturers like listen to this, because I know some of them follow me on Instagram, so I have to kind of be careful. Like,
Fine.
sorry, thanks for helping me out in that, but your lathes are a bit shit.
Yeah. But can I nick some tooling for it?
Yeah.
We got any
See,
centrifuges I can nick?
They're like, the tooling I don't think will fit. But I mean, if there's any scraps lying about, and I have done this already, but to be fair, my lecturer's just been like, yeah, just fucking take it. If you need it, take it. Sort of
I
thing.
did that
It just goes in the bin.
I thought that, but in aerospace, you don't get, bit of softish, machinable, mild steel. You get things like titaniums, or you get some like weird phosphor bronze alloy that looks like brass, but it's actually hard as nails.
Yeah.
So I pinched a load, and when I got my first ML7, I'm like, this machine is crap. It's not cutting, and then you're like honing the high-speed steel bits, and then when you actually take it back into work and say, what is this? Oh, yeah, that's a bit of titanium, that lad. Yeah, you're not cut out with that. Yeah. But yeah, it's general sheet metal and general fabrication. It would have been ideal. But aerospace stuff, you just can't do anything with it.
I remember doing something similar, and it was a piece of hardened 416 stainless steel.
Oh.
And that thing comes off. Yeah. Admittedly, I was using a carbide tip on it, but I was literally having to swing on it to try and get it to cut. I was like, what is this?
4,000 series stainless.
That's the thing with like just picking up random bits of metal, innit? You just don't know.
Mystery steel, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, everyone, we're going to call it a wrap for this episode. We will be returning in the next coming weeks for episode 2. Feedback would be fantastic. We're still setting up all the audio equipment at the minute, so I'm hoping that everybody can hear everything. If so, give us a thumbs up. Let us know. What are your thoughts? What do you want to discuss in the next one? And follow us on Instagram for behind the scenes, coming up topics, and just general related topics, to be honest. I'd probably say again?
Interviews?
Yeah, interviews. We're going to be getting loads of people. Too many to list, to be honest. I mean, Matt, can you name a few? Rosa, can you name a few?
Well, Matt, you go.
We've got our mate Pippi's Woodforge. He's keen. We've got Red Dog Workshop. Pookie Presses.
Cool.
Would be a cool one to interview, because he's obviously set up basically a company from scratch making something in the UK, which is awesome. Those are the few I've got off the top of my head at the moment.
Man Cave Makings.
Man Cave Makings, yeah, that's another one. And I'm waiting on replies from a few others. So
can't wait for a 50-50 split here with Man Cave.
Yeah, we've got a lot of.
You'll not be able to handle the Scottish patter. You'll not.
We won't be able to understand. We'll have to do.
I was going to say we're just going to end up it's just going to be your show, really, Rosie.
What we're going to do when we get Scots-it, when we get Scots-it or Lex-it, London leaves or Scotland leaves, or we'll have to be the United England Makers podcast. I think is what we're going to have to go for. Whoa. Next week, we've got Nicola Sturgeon, special guest. She's a big fan of crocheting and dividing nations.
What do you do in your spare time?
Well, for me, I will say thank you very much for watching. listening, whatever you're doing on whatever platform. Again, feedback would be grand. Matt, Rosie, anything you want to say to tie everything up of this episode?
No, really not.
No, I think we're all good.
We're all good. Oh, I don't know if I click record.
No.
Oh shit.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.